This is MTG Burgeoning, and in this video we are going to update and upgrade our Child of Alara EDH deck. Thank you for joining us for another installment of the Up and Up series. Today it's Child of Alara, one of our opponent's oh-so-favorite decks. Not really. Today we're going to update the land base of our deck here. We're going to add 3 new cards, take 3 cards out, and, well, that's just going to be another step closer to eventual banning by the play group. And just for the purposes of clarity, in the description of this video, you'll find links to this build's deck tech, the up-to-the-minute deck list, as well as this build's video primer series. All right, we're going to kick things off with our very first card of the day, and that is Talon Gates of Madara. Madara. I think we're going to go with Madara because there's no U in the word. This is a gate, folks. Check that out. A new gate is going into the Child of Alara build. When Talon Gates of Madara enters the battlefield, up to 1 target creature phases out. We can turn this sideways for a colorless mana. We can pay a generic mana and tap this land to add 1 mana of any color. And we can pay 4 generic mana to put this card from our hand onto the battlefield, which could allow us to phase out one of our opponent's creatures if they are trying to attack us for potentially lethal damage. Very nice, tricky card to add to our deck. Very, very nice card to put onto the battlefield, phase out one of our creatures, and then have Child Alara do its thing, and we still get to keep that creature on our side of the battlefield. All right, with this new gate going in, Talon Gates of Madara is going to replace another gate. That's right, MTG How do you like that? Many, many moons ago, we built this Child of Alara build with not too many gates from which to choose, and now we have the ability to have a gate replace another gate. It's a wonderful time to be a fan of Magic the Gathering. Gateway Plaza is going to come out. It entered the battlefield tapped, and when it did, we paid 1 generic mana, and if we did not, then we sacrificed it when it comes into play. We can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Couple of problems with this card now that we have the ability to replace a gate with a gate. It coming into play tapped. We have a lot of lands that come into play tapped in this build, and if there's any way that we can siphon some of them out with better options, we're going to do so. Plus, we have to pay 1 mana for it to come into play, or we have to sacrifice it. That's another detraction. And then lastly, although this land does tap to add 1 mana of any color, we're not hurting for mana fixing in a build that has 2/3 or more of the cards lands in this deck. So with very easy sleeping, we get rid of Gateway Plaza and put in Talon Gates of Madara. All right, MTG the second card going into this build, it is Planar Nexus. This card is going to be absolutely ridiculously bonkers in this Child of Alara build. Here we have a land that is every non-basic land type. Keep that in mind. Non-basic land types include cave, desert, gate, so this is also another gate, lair, locust, mine, power plant, sphere, tower, and Urzas. So this is going to count for any synergies that any of those non-basic land types have in the 99 of this build. Absolutely bonkers, and I'm not just talking about that candy from way back in the day. We can tap this land for a colorless mana, or we can pay a generic mana and tap it to add 1 mana of any color. We're not so concerned with the mana production of this card. It's the synergies with the non-basic land types that's going to make Planar Nexus one of the best lands in this build. With Planar Nexus entering the 99, of course, 1 card has to come out, and that's going to be Wargate. Interesting here, we're not doing a land for land swap. Instead, we're taking out one of the spells that we would use to get lands onto our side of the battlefield and replacing it with a land. So here we go. Wargate was originally put into this build because we can pay the Bant colors, the green, the white, and the blue, and then search our land to get one of the lands needed to help us win the game. That was the thought process at the beginning of this deck's inception. Well, we're many, many moons from creating this build, and since that time, this deck has taken on so many other powerful lands. We're now at the place where we don't have to worry about picking and choosing one or two lands to help us win the game, because now we have numerous options. So with that in mind, let's get rid of a card that's going to put one of those cards onto our side of the battlefield and replace it with another land, so that we have more and more options of getting land cards into our hand and then onto our side of the battlefield. Wargate is out and Planar Nexus is in. Alright, MTGBC, we're down to our last card going in and our last card coming out. The third and final land for this build. It is Urza's Cave. Here we have a land. Look at Urza's and Cave. Both of those are non-basic land types that would synergize with Planar Nexus. We can pay 3, tap, and sacrifice Urza's Cave to search our library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So this is pretty much almost exactly the reason why we had Wargate in the build. We're paying 3 mana, we're casting it, we're finding a land, and we're putting it onto the battlefield. But here, at least we get to benefit from tapping this land for some colorless mana when needed. We get to benefit from the synergies of it being an Urza's land and a cave, and when needed, we can pay that same 3 generic, I'm not saying 3 generic, we can pay the same total 3 mana to sacrifice this to find a land if needed, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then eventually win the game. With Urza's Cave going into the 99, it's similar to what Planar Nexus did. It's going to replace one of the sorceries that existed in this build at the beginning of this deck's existence, and that is Open the Gates. Here we had a sorcery for 1 green mana. It allowed us to search our library for a basic land or a gate card, reveal it, and put it into our hand. Again, similar to what we talked about when we were talking about Gateway Plaza yielding to Talon Gates of Madara, we didn't have a ton of gate options back when we first built this deck, and now we have a ton. So we are no longer needing to pay that green mana to search for one of those gate cards so that we can try to get it onto our side of the battlefield to do gate-like things. Now we have so many gates in this deck, so many ways to fix our mana with all of the different options we have in the land base, that Open the Gates simply yields to just another land that we're going to put into this build that's just going to help Child of Alara exist longer and longer, much to the dismay of all of our opponents. And I am not kidding, folks. This deck may be 2 to 3 up-and-up installments away from getting completely banned out of our metagame. It may be one of those builds that I just can't play with any degree of regularity. So if that sounds appeasing to you, then Child of Alara is the deck for you. For the rest of the MTGBC out there, you let me know your thoughts about these changes in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.